Frederick Douglass was an important figure in American history. He was born in slavery. This means that he was forced to work without being paid. He lived a long time ago, during the 1800s. However, he became famous for his fight for freedom and equality. Douglass's life was very difficult at first, but he changed history through his hard work and determination. His story is one of great courage and hope. When Frederick Douglass was born, he did not know the exact date of his birth. He only knew that it was in February. He was born in Maryland, a state in the United States. Douglass was born into slavery, so he lived in a time when black people were not free. Slavery was a system where some people owned other people and made them work. The people who were enslaved had no rights, and they could not make decisions for themselves. They had to obey the rules of their owners. Douglass did not live with his mother, and he was separated from her when he was very young. He was raised by his grandmother for a short time before he was sent to work on a plantation. A plantation was a large farm where crops like cotton and tobacco were grown. Douglass worked hard on the plantation. The work was very tiring, and he often had little food to eat. However, he was determined to learn to read and write. At the time, it was illegal for enslaved people to learn to read and write. The people who owned slaves wanted to keep them uneducated because they believed this would make it harder for them to escape or fight for their freedom. When Douglass was a young boy, he secretly learned to read. He learned by talking to the children of his owners and by reading books when he could. This was very dangerous for him, but he continued to learn because he knew it was important. He believed that learning would help him become free. As he grew older, Douglass began to realize that he wanted more than just to learn. He wanted to be free from slavery. Douglass's life changed when he was sent to live with a man named Edward Covey. Covey was known for being very harsh with the people he enslaved. He tried to break Douglass's spirit, but Douglass did not give up. After a terrible fight with Covey, Douglass decided he could not live as a slave anymore. He made a brave choice to escape. In 1838, Douglass escaped from slavery. He disguised himself as a sailor and traveled to the North. The North was where slavery was not allowed. In the North, Douglass could finally be free. When he arrived in the city of New York, he felt a huge sense of relief and happiness. But Douglass knew that his journey was not over. He had to keep fighting for freedom, not just for himself, but for other enslaved people as well. Douglass became a famous speaker and writer. He told his story to many people. He wanted to show them how wrong slavery was. He believed that everyone should have equal rights, no matter the color of their skin. Douglass gave speeches about the importance of freedom. He spoke out against the violence and injustice that enslaved people faced. He wrote many books, including his autobiography, in which he told his life story. His autobiography is one of the most famous books written by someone who was once a slave. As Douglass became more famous, he met other people who were also fighting for freedom. He met important leaders like Abraham Lincoln, the President of the United States. Douglass supported Lincoln during the Civil War, which was a war between the North and the South. The main issue of the war was slavery. Douglass believed that the North had to win the war to end slavery. He worked hard to encourage black men to join the army and fight for their freedom. He knew that the end of slavery would bring real change to the country. In 1863, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This document said that all enslaved people in the South were free. While this was an important step, slavery did not end immediately. Douglass knew that the fight was not over. He continued to speak out for equal rights for all people, including women and black people. He wanted a world where everyone could live in freedom and equality. Douglass became an important leader in the fight for civil rights. He worked for equal education for all children. He fought for women's rights as well. Douglass believed that women should have the right to vote. He believed in the idea of liberty for all people, no matter their race or gender. In his later years, Douglass worked as an ambassador for the United States. He traveled to other countries, where he spoke about freedom and justice. He became an important figure in the global fight for human rights. His influence reached far beyond the United States. Douglass's life shows us the power of education and courage. Even though he was born into a life of slavery, he changed the world with his words and actions. He fought for the rights of all people, and his work is still important today. Frederick Douglass believed in the idea of freedom and equality. His story is one of hope, strength, and change. Through his hard work and dedication, he helped make the world a better place. Douglass passed away in 1895, but his legacy still lives on. His work has inspired generations of people who continue to fight for freedom and equality. Frederick Douglass is remembered as one of the greatest leaders in American history. His life teaches us that no matter where we start, we can all make a difference. Douglass's story will always be an example of the power of education, courage, and determination.